Claire, full of compassion, invites Jack to stay at her house, believing that she is only helping a man in need. "Don't worry, you can stay at my house until you find a job." But one night it changes everything. When passing through the bathroom door, Claire sees him in the shower and the shock paralyzes her. What was supposed to be a simple gesture becomes an intense and irresistible conflict. From a very young age, Claire Robinson knew that her heart beat differently. Maybe it was the environment in which she grew up or the way her parents raised her, but from what I could remember, her life was intertwined with nature and the living beings that inhabited it. Living in the quiet suburbs of Chicago, in a house that always seemed full of life, Claire felt a deep connection with everything around her. Cats, dogs, and even injured wild animals brought by her father from the clinic filled the home of the Robinson family. For young Claire, those animals were not just creatures, they were companions, friends who needed love and care. Her mother, a nurse, always said, "The world is a better place when we offer our care to others." Claire. And those words were engraved on the girl's mind. She saw her mother every morning, wearing a white uniform with a soft smile on her face, ready to face another day helping people. Her father, a veterinarian with a heart as big as his love for animals, taught her that all lives have value. Claire watched him take care of cats with broken legs, abandoned dogs, and even small injured squirrels that he took home, always hoping that they would survive and be able to return to nature. These experiences shaped Claire in a unique way. From an early age, she knew that her future was tied to those who could not speak for themselves, the animals. She spent her afternoons in the garden, accompanied by playful dogs and lazy cats. While the other children played with dolls, Claire created her own animal hospital, where each plush was treated with the same care that she saw in her parents when caring for living beings. "I want to be like you when I grow up," said Claire, while watching her parents dedicate themselves to others. There was a depth in her words that, although they came from a girl, already carried the seriousness of someone who knew what she wanted from life. But it was not only the animals that fascinated her. Claire also had an eye for the nature that surrounded her. When the birds sang at dawn or the soft wind moved the trees, she felt an inner peace, an inexplicable connection. It was as if nature spoke to her, showing her how precious and fragile life was. As she grew up, that connection became stronger, leading her to decide that her future would be dedicated to biology and the study of species. However, while Claire grew up surrounded by love and care, in a distant African village, Jack faced a very different reality. "Please, I just need an opportunity," pleaded the young man, approximately 30 years old, with determined eyes. He was in front of a local merchant, a robust man skinned by the sun, who slowly denied with his head. "I'm sorry," replied the merchant, with a heavy expression of who had already denied that same opportunity to many others. "Times are difficult. I can't allow myself to hire anyone else." The young man lowered his head for a moment, trying to hide his frustration. He was tall, with broad shoulders and strong arms, signs of a hard-working life, but his face showed the marks of repeated disappointments. His brown eyes, which used to hold the hope of a better future, now reflected the silent struggle he faced day after day. Without a job, without prospects, and in a village that barely offered what was necessary to survive, he felt the weight of each closed door. "I understand," murmured the young man, trying to keep his composure. He turned around and began to walk through the dusty streets of the village, his boots resonating slightly on the arid ground. The scorching sun did not bother him as much as the oppressive silence around him. As he walked, he observed the simple houses around him. Each window, each door, seemed to tell a story of difficulties, of lost dreams. The children played on the ground, laughing, oblivious to the struggles of the adults, while the women carried baskets of fruits and vegetables, working hard to support their families. There was a raw and natural beauty in the village, but also a melancholy that seemed to impregnate it, a feeling that, despite the constant struggle, hope escaped between the fingers. Jack continued his walk, with his hands in the pockets of his worn pants. His thoughts mingled with the distant sound of the birds and the wind. "What do I do now?" he thought to himself, feeling a knot tighten his throat. He was young, but he already felt defeated. There was an overwhelming feeling that time was against him. The more he tried, the more it seemed that life was pushing him back. As he passed by an old and sturdy tree that stood in the center of the village, he stopped for a moment, watching his leaves swing gently. That tree had already seen many winters, many droughts, but it was still standing, with deep roots that gave it strength. He took a deep breath, trying to find a fraction of that resilience within himself. But reality was hard, and he knew he would need more than strength to continue. His eyes, which used to vibrate with ambition, now carried the weight of uncertainty. He continued walking without a clear destination, but with a silent desire that something, anything, would change in his life. Meanwhile, in Chicago, Claire grew up with a clear purpose. The young woman, still molded by her loving childhood, felt that there was something else for her in the world, something she needed to discover. Her passion for animals guided her, and she knew that her destiny was beyond the borders of her hometown. Claire always knew that her passion for animals would lead her to explore the world in a profound way. After years of dedicated studies, she graduated in biology with a specialization in environmental conservation. Throughout her career, she continued to focus on a single goal: the preservation of endangered species. Her focus was always Africa, a continent rich in biodiversity and home to some of the most endangered species on the planet. When Claire presented her project to her boss, an ambitious plan to study African fauna and understand the dynamics that were leading to the extinction of certain animals, she knew she was taking a great risk. It was not just a research trip, but also a personal search for a purpose. For her, that opportunity represented much more than just a scientific study. It was the opportunity to reconnect with what made the most sense to her: nature and animals. After several meetings, the project was approved, and Claire began to prepare for her trip to Africa. The emotion was mixed with anxiety. She knew that by setting foot on that soil, her life could change forever. But what she still did not know was how. Saying goodbye to her family and friends, Claire had a mixture of expectations and doubts. Would she be able to deal with the challenges she would face? The plane landed at a small airport in the heart of the African continent. The heat was palpable, a dense wave of hot air that enveloped her as soon as she got off the plane. Around her, the scenery was different from everything she had seen. The sky was a deep blue, and the horizon seemed to extend forever, interrupted only by small villages scattered in the vastness. Claire breathed deeply, feeling the smell of the earth and the distant sound of wild animals. The village where she would stay was simple, but rich in culture. The children ran through the streets of the land, laughing and playing, while the women carried water pots on their heads with an elegance that fascinated her. The local market was full of colors and aromas, exotic fruits, dry herbs and vibrant fabrics that danced with the wind. Claire felt a chill run down her back as she realized the cultural immersion in which she was about to enter. "Claire, this is Jack," said her local guide, introducing her to a man who, at first glance, seemed to have a notable contrast with the scenery surrounding him. Jack was a man of approximately 60 years old, with short gray hair and an expression that mixed seriousness with a certain sadness. He was standing under the shade of a large tree, with his hands in the pockets of pants already worn over time. Although it was clear that he was going through difficulties, there was something in his posture that differentiated him from the others. He had a reserved dignity, a remarkable presence that immediately caught Claire's attention. "Delighted to meet you," he said with a hoarse but polite voice. Claire smiled, a little surprised by the intensity in Jack's eyes, which seemed to carry the stories of a life full of ups and downs. "The pleasure is mine," she replied, trying to hide her initial discomfort. I didn't know exactly why, but something about that man intrigued her deeply. Over the following days, Claire began to get used to the rhythm of the village and the life that surrounded her. Her studies with animals were advancing, and she was often with Jack, who had offered to help her. Although she did not have a formal job in the village, she demonstrated a deep knowledge of the region, knew the best places to observe species, and even helped Claire to interact with the local hunters, who helped her to approach wild animals without causing disturbances. "Have you ever thought of leaving here?" Clyde asked one afternoon, as they walked through the golden hills that surrounded the village. Jack stopped for a moment, looking at the horizon, then calmly replied, as if the idea of leaving the village was completely alien to his reality. "I was born here, I grew up here. Everything I know is around me." Claire frowned, intrigued. "Not even to know the city? See how things work there." Jack laughed briefly, shaking his head. "What would I do in the city? I am a countryman. I have no formal education or skills that will serve me there. In addition, I have heard stories. They say that the city devours the soul of people." Claire watched him, thinking that Jack's perspective seemed so distant from the life she knew. "But aren't you curious to see what's beyond these hills?" Jack looked at her, his eyes full of silent wisdom. "Maybe. But life here, no matter how difficult it is what keeps my feet on the ground. In the city, I would only be one more lost." Jack's words stayed with Claire, but something within her propelled her to change that. "And if you came with me," she suddenly suggested, "you could get to know the city, and I could show you a little how things work there. Who knows? Maybe you'll discover something you never imagined." Jack laughed, but there was a hesitation in his eyes. "Do you really think I would adapt? Life in the city seems so far away to me. Everything is fast, and I am too slow for that rhythm." Claire smiled, trying to soften the situation. "But you have something that many in the city do not have, Jack. Experience. Wisdom. Maybe that's more valuable than you think." He remained silent for a moment, thoughtful. "Maybe someday. But now my place is here." The following days, Jack continued to help Claire with her study. Despite his initial resistance, Claire's proposal seemed to resonate in his mind. There was something about that young woman that made him question his own limits, something that pushed him to look beyond what he had always known. On a warm afternoon, while elephants watched in the distance, Jack looked at thoughtful Claire. "Do you really think I could adapt? Is there something for me in the city?" Claire turned to him, her eyes shining with enthusiasm. "Yes, Jack. I think there is something for all of us anywhere if we give it a chance. And if you never try, you'll never know." Jack took a deep breath, as if he were considering that idea for the first time. The gentle wind mowed the leaves of the trees around him, and for a brief moment, Claire felt that something had changed. He was seriously considering the proposal. The day of Claire's departure arrived, and before getting in the car, there was Jack, holding his bag with his few important belongings, ready to change his life. Dear subscribers, what do you think of this story? Don't forget to comment below to find out. Also, comment which story themes you like the most or what you would like to see. Don't forget to subscribe, please. Now let's go back to the story. Upon returning to the city, the environment was completely different from what Jack was used to. The incessant noise of the cars, the accelerated rhythm of the people, everything seemed to him a disordered cacophony. Claire, noticing Jack's concern, offered him a temporary place in her house until he found a job. "Don't worry, you can stay at my house until you find a job." Jack, despite doubting at first, agreed. He knew that finding a job in the city could take time, and being next to Claire gave him a sense of security, although the city, with its frenetic rhythm, made him uncomfortable. Claire's house was small and cozy, decorated with memories of her trips and studies on wildlife. Jack, used to the simplicity of the village, felt out of place in that environment. Everything seemed too modern, too technological. In the first days he tried to adapt, but he felt that with each step, the city moved him away from who he was. One night, after a long day of looking for a job, Jack went to shower. The dusty streets and accumulated fatigue made him need that moment of calm. The bathroom, with its white tiles and shiny mirrors, was an overwhelming contrast with the simplicity he knew in the village. He left the door half open without worrying too much. After all, he was alone. Claire, on the other hand, had no idea what was about to happen. She was in the living room organizing some work documents when, as she got up to look for something in the hallway, she passed near the bathroom. The steam came out through a slit in the door, and unintentionally, her eyes went inwards, and there was Jack on his back showering. Claire froze in place. The initial shock paralyzed her, but at the same time, something deeper made her stay there, watching. Jack was a strong man, and now underwater. His figure seemed even more imposing, in addition to the fact that it was very large. The drops fell down the muscles of his wide back, and Claire, unable to look away, felt something she had never felt before. Her heart accelerated, and a heat rose through her body. Jack's image at that moment was intensely recorded in her mind, and quickly moved away, feeling confused. Back in the living room, Claire sat on the sofa, trying to process what had just happened. What was that? She thought, taking her hands to her head. Jack's image in the shower did not leave her mind, and that left her restless. She had always seen him as a worthy man, but distant, someone from a reality different from her own. However, now there was something else, a feeling that had arisen unexpectedly. The next day, still tormented by her thoughts, Claire met her friend Sophie for a coffee. She needed to vent, tell someone what she felt, even if she did not fully understand what was happening inside her. Sophie, I need to tell you something, Claire began, hesitant. Sophie, always attentive and understanding, leaned into the chair with a curious look. Of course, what happened? Claire sighed deeply before speaking. I saw Jack showering last night. The door was half open and I could not stop looking. Sophie arched a surprised eyebrow. And what did you feel? I don't know how to explain it. I was in shock. But at the same time I can't get the image out of my head. It's as if something inside me had woken up, and I can't stop thinking about it. Friend, what he has is very big. Sophie kept silent for a moment, analyzing the words of her friend. Claire, he is much older than you. Maybe you're just confused about the situation. You both have been living together, and that may be influencing you. I know, Sophie, Clyde replied, frustrated. But that's not it. It's something deeper. When I'm close to him, I feel a connection, something I've never felt with anyone before. Sophie moved her head, worried. Just be careful, Claire. There is a big difference between attraction and real feelings. You need to understand what is really going on before doing something hasty. Claire knew that Sophie was right, but still, she couldn't ignore what she was feeling. In the days that followed, she tried to move thoughts away from Jack, focusing on her work and responsibilities. However, the discomfort grew. Every time she saw him, his imposing presence and that image returned to her mind. Meanwhile, Jack was also dealing with his own difficulties. Life in the city was confusing for him. The constant noise, the lights, the crowds, none of that made sense. Day after day, he tried to find a job, but when he returned to Claire's house, he was always dirty, barefoot, regardless of the formalities of the urban environment. He ate with his hands, left his clothes in the living room, and brought the dust of the city with him. Jack felt out of place. He listened to the noise of the cars in the distance and looked out the window, watching the flashing lights. It was as if he were in a place that did not belong to him. He missed the silence of the town, the simplicity of the people, and the quiet days. But there was something about Claire that made him hesitate to return. She was different. Her kindness, her way of looking at him with a mixture of compassion and curiosity, made him feel that maybe there was something more for him in that place. He didn't know how to explain what he felt. He felt attracted to Claire, that was undeniable, but there was an abyss between them. He saw in her the energy and vigor of youth, something he had long lost. Even so, every time their eyes crossed, he felt a spark of something new, something that scared him and excited him at the same time. A particularly quiet night, while the two were in the living room, Claire broke the silence. Jack, are you adapting? She asked with a tone of concern. He laughed softly, sincerely. No, this city is not for me. Everything here is fast, noisy, and I feel out of place. Claire smiled, trying to ease the tension. I imagined it, but you have something that many here do not have. You are strong, resilient. I think you can find your way if you wish. Jack looked at her thinkingly. Maybe, but I don't know if this is my way. I am a man of the earth, Claire. These lights, these sounds are not for me. Claire's heart shrank when she heard that. She did not want to admit it, but the idea that Jack would return to town, that he would leave her home and her life, bothered her deeply. Something inside her screamed for him to stay, but she did not know how to deal with that new and confusing feeling that consumed her. The tension between them grew day by day, and Claire knew that she would soon have to confront her true desires. The relationship between them, although not spoken, was on the verge of a decisive moment. The days passed slowly, but the tension between Claire and Jack grew more and more. The man who used to seem rustic and disconnected from the urban world was now beginning to change. Claire had decided to help him adapt, to feel more comfortable in the city. And on the other hand, she herself was changing in ways she never imagined. "We are going to cut that hair, Jack," she said in a playful tone, but with a touch of seriousness. Jack looked at her with a shy smile, clearly uncomfortable with the idea. "I'm not one to take care of those things. What matters is hard work, not appearance," Jack replied, laughing at himself. Claire shook her head, determined. "You are no longer in the village, Jack. Things work differently here. If you want to adapt and get a good job, you need to present yourself well." Jack followed her to the hairdresser. During the haircut, Claire noticed something that made her feel a mixture of pride and sadness. With each strand of hair that fell, Jack seemed to transform, not only physically, but in a deeper way. When the barber finished, Jack hardly recognized himself in the mirror. His look was cleaner, more refined. Claire bought him new clothes, well-ironed shirts and clean shoes, replacing the sandals and worn pants he had been wearing since he arrived. "Now you are ready to face the world," Claire commented, feeling a wave of confused emotions invading her heart. Jack looked at her with a glow of gratitude in his eyes, but also with a shadow of doubt. "I don't know if I feel comfortable like this. I'm not the man you see now." Claire smiled, trying to ignore the knot in her chest. "You are the man you have always been, Jack. You are just adapting. But for me, you don't need to change." Every day, Jack was more adapted to the lifestyle of the city, and soon he got a simple job in a workshop. He was skillful with his hands, and his experience in manual labor was quickly valued by the owners of the place. However, although he was doing well, there was something about Jack that did not seem to fit into that world. He did what was necessary, but his heart did not belong to that place. That night, when Jack returned home, he looked at Claire with a serious expression. "I got a job," he said, trying to force a smile. Claire, sitting on the sofa, gave him back the smile, but he felt that something was breaking inside her. "That's great, Jack. I'm very happy for you." He felt it, but he didn't seem as excited as he should. "I'll move soon. I'm already looking for a place to stay." Those words hit Claire like a punch in the stomach. The idea that Jack was leaving, of not having him by her side, made her realize how much it meant to her. The silence between them grew longer, only interrupted by the sound of the wind outside. Claire got up, walking slowly towards him. "Jack, I have to tell you something," she started with a trembling voice. He looked at her, surprised by the sudden seriousness in her tone. "Stay one more night with me?" she asked, with her eyes full of a feeling that she could no longer contain. "I can't get you out of my head, Jack. Since the day I saw you in that village, something in me changed. I try to resist, but I can't anymore." Jack, who always kept a respectful distance, felt something break inside him. Without saying a word, he pulled her towards him, hugging her tightly. The intensity of that moment was almost unbearable for Claire. All the emotions that she had tried to repress now flowed uncontrollably. That night everything changed. Claire felt her heart beat hard as she tried to understand what that meant. But as much as she wanted to believe that everything would be resolved, something deep in her heart knew that the dilemma was just beginning. In the days that followed, Jack began to realize that life in the city was not for him. He had adapted, yes. He had gotten a job, had cut his hair, used the clothes that Claire had bought him. But inside he was still the same man from the village, the one who valued simplicity, silence, and the slowest pace of life. "I can't keep doing this," Jack confessed one cloudy morning. "I appreciate everything you've done for me, but I don't belong here. I miss my village, my roots. Here everything is too fast. Everything is artificial." Claire felt the panic grow inside her. "Do you mean to leave?" Her voice was low, almost a whisper. Jack felt her sad but firm gaze. "Yes, I need to go back. I don't know who I am here. But in the village, I find myself." His words hit her like a violent tide. Claire knew he was right. He knew he would never adapt to the city. But at the same time, the idea of letting him go was unbearable. She loved him. She realized that now. It was not just a passing attraction, it was something deep, something that made her feel alive in a way she had never felt before. And then, faced with the most difficult decision of her life, Claire had to choose. Stay in the city she loved, with her career and planned life, or follow her heart and leave everything to live with Jack, in the village where he belonged. She took a deep breath, looked at Jack, and without hesitation she said, "I'm coming with you." Jack looked at her surprised. "Are you sure about this, Claire? Life in the village is not easy. You would be giving up everything." Claire smiled, finally feeling an inner peace that she had not felt before. "I'm sure. Nothing in the city brought me what you have brought me. It doesn't matter where we are, as long as we are together." And so, Claire left everything behind. The city, her career, her planned life. She left for the village, next to the man she loved, knowing that the decision she had made would lead to a simple but full life. She knew that, with Jack, she had found what she had always been looking for, the fullness that true love brings. At the end of her journey, Claire understood that true hospitality goes beyond opening the doors of a house. It is about opening the heart, welcoming those who are in need, offering love, care, and understanding. In Hebrews 13 verse 2, the Bible teaches us, "Do not forget hospitality, because for it some, without knowing it, hosted angels." Claire understood that by opening her house to Jack, not only did she offer refuge, but she also discovered a greater purpose, a love that transformed her life. By welcoming others, we often find unexpected blessings, and it is through this act of kindness that we connect more deeply with others and with God.
This story is about to get even more interesting. Therefore, I really need to know that you are enjoying the story. So say something in the comment section, or you can comment whatever it is that you like. I really want to see that you guys are enjoying the story for me to be motivated to post the next story. So please, first of all, subscribe. Secondly, please make sure to like the video. And thirdly, please write a comment, write anything. So first of all, tell me how interesting the story is and what you've actually learned.
What if the biggest dilemma of your life was choosing between true love and your deepest dreams? Claire left everything behind to live with Jack in the village, believing she had found the perfect balance, until a devastating secret and an irresistible offer threatened to destroy everything. What would you do if you had to choose between the past and the future? Claire and Jack had been married for a few months, and together they decided to settle in the African village, the place where Jack had grown up and lived all his life. The decision, which seemed the right one at first, soon revealed the challenges they both would face. Jack was never able to get a steady job in the village. The lack of work and limited opportunities meant he had to work even harder. The small mud house where they lived, built with the sweat of their labor, reflected the simplicity and daily struggle for survival. The days were long, and the quiet pace of the village, which had once fascinated Claire, now seemed to suffocate her. The village, with its deep traditions and culture, was not so welcoming to outsiders. Some of the inhabitants eyed Claire with suspicion, gossiping about her intentions. The fact that she had left her comfortable life in the city to live there made no sense to many, especially since she was white, and the cultural difference seemed to create an invisible barrier. "People," Claire began to say as she looked out the window, seeing some children playing on the dirt street. "They look at me as if I were an intruder here." Jack, sitting at the table, raised his tired eyes. "They are not used to change. Neither was I at first when I came back here. But it's different," Claire continued, turning to him. "I left everything behind. My career, my friends. And for what? Sometimes I feel so lost here." Jack sighed, understanding his wife's inner conflict, but feeling helpless in the face of the situation. "I know it's not easy," he murmured, "but I thought that together we could get through this." The village may be hard, but this life is what I know. We just need time." Silence fell between them for a moment, as Jack reflected on the reality they faced. He knew that conditions in the village were limited. Try as he might, he had never gotten a formal job. The opportunities simply did not exist. Even with all his experience and willingness, the scarcity of the market pushed him to basic survival. The house he had built with his own hands, a small mud structure, was the fruit of years of hard work. But even that did not seem enough. What if? Jack breaks the silence. "I start planting in the yard. Fruit, vegetables. We can try selling at the village market. It wouldn't be much, but maybe it will help." It could be a start. Claire looked at him with a mixture of hope and concern. She knew Jack was trying, but she also felt the weight of the difficulties on his shoulders. "Do you think that would solve anything?" she asked quietly. "I don't know if it will solve everything," Jack replied, standing up. "But it's what we can do now. If we don't try, we'll never know." Jack hugged her, and Claire found comfort in his arms as always. Jack was her refuge. She felt protected with him like never before. They were happy, despite the difficulties. Love always prevailed. Determined to find a solution, Jack began to prepare the soil in the backyard. Every day he devoted himself to planting fruits and vegetables, hoping that this small initiative could bring some relief. Claire watched his efforts with a mixture of admiration and sadness, still wondering if this was the future she really wanted. The village continued with its simple routine, but for Claire, each day seemed more challenging. And while Jack did his best to mediate tensions and support his wife, he knew that their future there would depend on much more than just harvests. In the months that followed, Claire began to notice that there was something about Jack that he always avoided discussing. Every time she tried to engage in deeper conversations about his life before the village, he would either duck out, change the subject, or simply remain silent. At first, she didn't think much of it, thinking it was perhaps just his reserved personality. But over time, curiosity turned to uneasiness. One afternoon, while walking through the village, Claire met one of the elders, an elderly man but with a keen spirit. They chatted about the village, the local stories and traditions, and the topic eventually fell on Jack. "Jack," began the old man, looking at Claire with some seriousness. "He's a good man, always has been, but he carries a heavy past." Claire felt a knot in her stomach. "Past? What does he mean?" The old man looked at her with an expression that indicated he knew more than he was willing to tell. "It's not my story to tell, child, but I know that before he came back here he had a very different life. Family, a wife." Those words hit Claire like a punch in the stomach. "A family," she repeated mentally, unable to process what she had just heard. Jack had never mentioned being married or having children. Why would he hide something like that? She thanked the old man and left, her mind full of questions. All the way back home, her head kept spinning. At first, she tried to rationalize it. Maybe it was too painful for him. Maybe he was trying to protect her from unnecessary suffering. But the more she thought about it, the more betrayed she felt. How could she trust Jack if he was hiding something so important about his life? When she got home, she found Jack in the garden, tending to the fruits and vegetables he had planted. She watched him for a moment, feeling a lump in her throat. He seemed so serene, so at peace with his new life there. But Claire couldn't see the same man anymore. What else could he be hiding? "Jack," she began hesitantly as she approached. He looked up, noticing Claire's serious expression. "What's wrong, Claire? Has something happened? Why haven't you ever told me about your family?" The words came out faster than Claire had planned. Jack froze. The color in his face paled slightly and he looked away. The silence that followed was suffocating. "Who told you?" he asked finally, his voice low. "Does it matter?" Claire replied, her tone harsher than she intended. "You should have told me, Jack. I'm your wife. How could you hide something like that?" He took a deep breath, struggling to find the right words. "I didn't want to hurt you. My past is complicated. I don't even know how to begin talking about it. So just start." Claire insisted, crossing her arms, her heart pounding with frustration. You deserve to know. Jack sighed, finally sitting down on one of the steps of the mud house. I was married, yes. I had a family, but they're gone now. An accident, he paused, fighting back the painful memories. I lost everything. After that, I couldn't live there anymore. I went back to the village, trying to escape from everything, from the past, from the pain. When I first met you, I didn't think it would matter. Claire felt a surge of empathy mixed with pain. She understood now the weight Jack carried, but that didn't ease her sense of betrayal. I can't believe you thought that didn't matter, she replied, her voice shaking. How can we build anything if you keep the most important parts of who you are from me? Jack, visibly shaken, just hung his head, unable to answer. The silence between them was almost deafening. The revelation deeply shook Claire and Jack's relationship. She already felt out of place in the village, struggling to adjust to a life that didn't seem to belong to her. Now, with this new secret revealed, Claire began to question even more whether she had made the right decision. What do you think about this story? Do you think Claire is facing too many difficulties for love? Don't miss what's next. Please don't forget to subscribe to our channel at the end of the video and comment from which country you are watching this video, okay? The next morning, Claire started to feel strange, nauseous, and her body seemed different. At first, she thought it was just the stress of village life or some temporary health problem. However, as the days went by, the symptoms only got worse. Claire then decided to get tested, and when she saw the positive result, her heart raced. She was pregnant. Sitting on the edge of the bed, Claire held the test in her hands, staring at it in disbelief. How is this possible? She thought, as a mixture of emotions overwhelmed her. Although she knew that pregnancy was a natural part of marriage, the news came at a time of complete uncertainty about her life. She was still struggling to adjust to life in the village. She missed the comforts of the city, her job, the opportunities, everything she had left behind. Now, with a baby on the way, those insecurities seemed to multiply. How am I going to raise a child here? Did I make the right decision by leaving my life in the city? She wondered silently. When she told Jack about the pregnancy, he reacted in a completely different way. His eyes sparkled with excitement and he hugged her tightly. Claire, this is a blessing, he said, his voice filled with joy. Second chance at a family. Jack, who had lost his former family in a tragic accident, saw the pregnancy as a chance to start over. He already felt a great love for Claire, but the arrival of a child made him feel renewed, as if his life was finding a new purpose. However, Claire did not share the same enthusiasm. She forced a smile upon hearing Jack's joy, but inside she felt drowned by doubt. She didn't want to disappoint him, but questions about their future kept lingering in her mind. Is the village the right place to raise a baby? She thought, as she watched Jack plan a future for them there. Jack, noticing Claire was growing increasingly worried, tried to help in the best way he knew how. He intensified his work on the garden, determined to improve his financial situation to support his new family. His first harvest was a success. He managed to sell fruit and vegetables to some villagers, and with the money, he began to expand his land, planting even more. Every day of gardening was a way of showing Claire that they could have a good life there. We will make it, Claire. I know the village is not the city, but we are building something together, Jack said, trying to calm her down. We're going to have a family. That's all I've ever wanted. Claire looked at him, feeling the weight of her own indecision. She knew Jack was doing his best and appreciated his efforts, but doubt persisted. The desire for freedom to resume her career and live in a place with more opportunities now collided with the reality of becoming a mother in a place where she barely felt part of the community. The pregnancy, which should have brought joy, was creating a new kind of pressure on Claire. She found herself in an ever-deepening dilemma. On the one hand, there was her love for Jack and the life they were building together. On the other, there was the fear of losing her identity and her dreams in the simplicity of the village. While Jack tended the garden and planned for the future, Claire was lost in thought, trying to find answers to questions that seemed to have no solution. One morning, something happened that Claire could never have imagined. The job offer arrived in an elegant envelope, stamped with the seal of one of the world's most renowned animal conservation organizations. When Claire opened the letter, her hands were shaking slightly. She had dreamed of opportunities like this for years, and now she had one right in front of her. It would be a major breakthrough in her career, a chance to reconnect with the purpose that had so motivated her in the city. The offer was clear. She would be responsible for leading a new conservation project in a critical region of Africa, something that could cement her reputation as one of the best researchers in the field. But with that offer came doubts. Accepting it would mean returning to the city, to the old world she had left behind. And more than that, it would mean leaving Jack, the village, and the baby on the way. Claire spent the entire afternoon staring at the letter. Jack didn't know about the offer, and she didn't have the courage to tell him. He was so intent on tending the garden, expanding the plantings, and building a future for them there. How could she tell him she was thinking of leaving? Her heart was divided in a way she had never felt before. What do I do now? Claire muttered to herself, as she looked out the window at the yard. Jack, with his back to her, tended to the plants with a serene smile on his face. He looked so happy, so at peace with the life they were building together, and that only added to the weight of the decision Claire had to make. Now I want to ask you, the viewer, what would you do in Claire's place? Would you maintain the stability of your new life in the village, or would you follow your dream of returning to the city and resuming the career you love so much? Leave your comment. I would love to know how you would react to this very complicated situation. Still without answers, Claire decided that she needed time to think. She told Jack that she wanted to visit the city for a few days, see her family, breathe the urban air again. Jack supported her, not knowing the real reasons behind the trip. Will do you good. You can go see your friend Sophie, spend time with your family, Jack said as he hugged her. Just don't take too long to come back, okay? Claire forced a smile, but her heart was tight. She said goodbye to Jack, and days later she was back in town. The contrast was immediate. The streets were full of people, the lights, the constant sound of cars and conversations. Claire felt a wave of familiarity, but also of strangeness. The city that had once seemed so alive now seemed chaotic, disordered. Yet a part of her still missed that fast pace. Arriving at her friend Sophie's house, Claire let out everything she was feeling. Sophie, I feel so lost. I love Jack, but living in the village is proving to be much harder than I imagined. People don't accept me, they look at me with distrust, and I feel like an outsider all the time. Besides, this job offer is everything I ever dreamed of. But how can I just drop it all now, with a baby on the way? Sophie leaned in, listening intently, with that understanding look that always reassured her. Claire, I understand how complicated all this is, but you have to think about what's most important to you right now. I'm not telling you to ignore your dreams, but maybe it's not just the job offer that's the issue. It's your life in the village. Have you talked to Jack about how you feel there? Claire sighed, feeling the weight of the question. Not like I should. I don't want to burden him. He's so intent on making our life work. But for me, I don't know if I can live like this forever. Only you can know that, Claire, Sophie said fondly. But you need to be honest with yourself. If the village isn't the right place for you, maybe it's time to consider your options. What you've built with Jack is important, but you have to be happy too. Claire fell silent, Sophie's words echoing in her mind. She knew her friend was right, but she didn't expect it would be so hard to admit what she felt. That same afternoon, while walking through the streets of the city, Claire ran into someone she hadn't seen in years, David, her ex-boyfriend. He was just as handsome as she remembered, and the unexpected encounter took her completely by surprise. Claire, is that you? David said, smiling as he approached. Claire felt her heart race. She hadn't expected to see him again, especially at such a time in her life, so full of uncertainty. David, what a surprise to see you here, she replied, trying to hide her nerves. They spoke briefly, and David, still charming and in his engaging manner, revealed that he had never forgotten her. He mentioned that he thought about her constantly, and that perhaps at another time in life, they could have been happy together. You know, Claire, I always imagined what it would have been like if we had stayed together. David said, looking into her eyes with an intensity that left her bewildered. That conversation left Claire uneasy. That night, she found herself thinking about what her life would have been like if she had stayed with David. Would they have started a family? Would she have continued her career in the city, not having to choose between love and ambition? But as those questions played on her mind, something much stronger began to emerge. A longing for Jack. Claire realized that despite the doubts, uncertainties, and dilemmas, what she felt for Jack was unlike anything she had ever experienced before. It was deep, true, and unwavering. The next morning, David invited her out for coffee. Claire agreed, but the encounter brought more clarity than confusion. When he tried to get closer, perhaps hoping to rekindle something between them, Claire felt immense anguish. "I can't," she said, moving away from David. "I can't do this." At that moment, she knew what she had to do. Claire ran back to the hotel, packed her bags, and took the first plane back to the village. That night, as Claire stepped out of the taxi in front of the small mud house she now called home, her heart was beating fast and her emotions were running high. The weariness of the journey faded away in the whirlwind of thoughts and feelings. Jack, who was sitting on the small porch, was surprised to see her arrive at that hour. He stood up quickly, worried as he noticed the tension on her face. "Claire?" he asked, walking towards her. "What happened? You didn't say you'd be back so soon." Claire sighed, feeling the weight of the words she had to say. "Jack, I need to tell you what happened in town." Her voice was shaking, but she knew she had to be honest. "I got a job offer, one of those I've always dreamed of. And I met someone. An ex-boyfriend." He tried to get closer, and for a moment I felt so confused. Jack was silent, his face hardening, but he kept his gaze fixed on Claire, waiting for her to continue. "I thought about what my life would be like if I had stayed in the city, what it would be like with him. But Jack, the moment he tried something, Claire stopped, overcome with emotion. All I could think about was you. I realized that no matter what the city offers me, my happiness is not there. It is here with you." Silence reigned for a few seconds. Jack lowered his head, struggling to process everything he had just heard. Claire stepped closer, taking his hand firmly. "I know what I did could have hurt you, and I am deeply sorry for that. But I'm back, Jack. I'm back because I love you. I don't want to lose everything we've built." Jack took a deep breath, looking into Claire's eyes. "Claire, I understand." His voice was soft but firm. "Life in the village is hard. I know it hasn't been easy for you, and I can't blame you for thinking about returning to the city. But I love you, Claire. And the fact that you're back, that means the world to me." Jack stepped forward and wrapped Claire in a tight hug. They both felt relief, as if a huge cloud of uncertainty had finally lifted. "I forgive you," Jack murmured. "All that matters is that you are here now." The two of them stood there, holding each other in the silence of the night, feeling the warmth of love and forgiveness enveloping them. In the days that followed, Claire began to reconnect with the village in a way she had never imagined. One day, while doing her weekly shopping at the local market, she saw an elderly woman trip and fall to the ground, knocking over all her bags. Immediately, Claire rushed to help her. "Are you okay, ma'am?" Claire asked, helping her up. The lady, visibly embarrassed, nodded with a small smile. "Yes, my dear, I'm just a little old to be walking around here with such heavy bags." Looking at the purchases lying on the floor, Claire saw that many of the items were damaged or unusable. Without hesitation, she picked up the bag and went straight to the market to buy everything again. "You don't need to do this, dear," said the lady, surprised by the gesture. "Of course it is necessary," Claire replied with a kind smile. "It is the least I can do." The lady was deeply touched. When the two returned to the old lady's house, she invited Claire in for a cup of coffee. During their conversation, Claire discovered that the lady was one of the most respected and beloved people in the village, a real old lady to whom everyone turned for advice. The conversation flowed naturally, and the lady was impressed by Claire's kindness and respect. "You are different from what they say, my daughter. I have heard a lot about you, but I don't think anyone really knows you." Claire smiled with a touch of sadness. I've tried to adapt. It's hard sometimes. I think some people aren't ready to accept someone from outside." The old woman shook her head. "It's not easy to be accepted in such a closed place, but in time they will see your value, just as I saw it today." Over time, the old woman's words began to spread throughout the village. People began to see Claire differently, as someone who really cared about the community. They began inviting her to local events, getting to know the locals better, and little by little, Claire began to make true friends. Meanwhile, Jack was hard at work building a new house on a larger piece of land he had managed to buy from the sales of his fruits and vegetables. He wanted to give Claire and the unborn baby a comfortable place to live. And finally, the day came when the house was ready. "Here it is, Claire," Jack said with a proud smile. "Our new home." The house was simple but cozy, with a wide porch overlooking the vast field that Jack farmed. Claire felt a wave of happiness when she saw how much effort Jack had put into creating this space for them. "It's perfect," Claire said, her eyes filling with tears. "Perfect for us." Months later, with the arrival of their daughter, the little home they had built together was finally complete. Claire looked around, watching Jack cradling the baby in his arms, and the love she felt for him and the new life they had built grew every day. She knew that her happiness was not in the city, in the career, or in the great conquests. Her true happiness was here, in the village, with Jack, her daughter, and the love they shared. Life, as simple as it was, finally made sense. Claire and Jack's story teaches us that true happiness is often not found in great achievements or in places where we think we will find fulfillment, but in the people we choose to share our lives with and in the love we build along the way. In 1 Corinthians 13 verse 7, the Bible reminds us that love bears all things, believes all things, hopes all things, endures all things. Like Claire and Jack, we are called to believe in the power of love, which can overcome challenges, differences, and moments of uncertainty. By choosing love and forgiveness, we find the strength to build a full and true life, even in the most unexpected places. Thanks for watching so far. Subscribe, like our video, comment to get to know us better, and may God bless your lives.